Today we are digging into our sweet potatoes. Earlier this year we wanted to try an experiment. The guidelines were that these sweet potatoes would grow under 3 conditions: cheap, easy, and high yield. Today we're going to cover just how cheap and easy growing in this method was, and by the end we are going to dig these things up and see just how high of a yield we had to see if we actually meet our 3 conditions. As you know, building a planter box can get pretty expensive. These 4 raised beds by themselves were actually purchased around coronavirus, which each 2x4 was about $7 a piece, leading to each one of these being close to $100 a piece. Right now, luckily, the price is about $3 per board, which would make these about $30 to $40 depending on how high you go up, which is okay, but we are going for cheaper than that because not only do you have to pay for the boards, you also have to pay for the screws, you have to pay for whatever is the filling medium that you're putting inside there, the dirt, the compost, any of those things. And if you want to grow substantial, doing 4 beds like this is going to get very pricey. We had to do raised beds specifically because the soil, the ground that we are on here is not very deep, it's very shallow, and we just can't place anything in the ground, which led us to find other methods. It came to the point where dirt was too expensive, so we moved on to wood chips. And these wood chips are a key part of what we're going to be experimenting in. We took our sweet potatoes and we're growing them in wood chips. Why wood chips, you might ask? You may think right away it's because we want to try the back to Eden method. But to be frank with you, I'm not a fan of the back to Eden method. We've tried it for 2 years because, like I said, we did not have a lot of growing space, we didn't have the ground, and we didn't have the money to put in to growing those boxes. So we put wood chips in a bunch of different rows and tried to grow in them, but we failed at everything. And that's because wood chips steal too much nitrogen. Over time, they're going to re-release that nitrogen back into the soil, but they steal too much early on, and the breakdown takes too long. This is why they say 3 to 5 years. So no, it's not because of back to Eden. It's because it's a cheap alternative to where we don't have to buy soil or anything else, and the plants should still thrive. Sweet potatoes are an awesome plant for low nitrogen soil. Sure, they still need nitrogen, but the amount that they need is way less than an average plant. This is a great thing to know about sweet potatoes because this gives us leverage on our growing medium. What we can grow these sweet potatoes in that make it cheaper for us. For stipulation 1, let's talk about cost. These beds are about 50 feet long, 3 feet wide, and about 2 feet tall. It won't look like that when we're there because we've buried a lot of the side end also, but about 2 feet tall. This would cost around $800 to fill with topsoil, which is outrageous and something that we're not going to do. We did bring in dirt for the rest of the bed, a triaxle of kind of clayish material, which was about $300 for 22 tons. This also was pretty expensive, but allowed us to be able to fill the rest of the beds. However, the bed that we put our sweet potatoes in is strictly wood chips with a tiny bit of mushroom compost. For this entire bed, when it comes to 50 feet long, we got all of these wood chips completely free. We've done a lot of work to become friends with a lot of different arborists in the area, and they bring us wood chips, and we get to use them. That's how we got it for free. If you want to do something like chip drop, you could do something like that, and sometimes they ask for about $20. We also took a very tiny bit of mushroom compost, which was almost hard to calculate how much we put in because it was very little. We took the slips and we put them in a little hole where we put mushroom compost, but just very little, just enough for those slips to start growing out. We just wanted to give them the best chance possible at being able to take root and grow inside of the wood chips, and I don't even think that was totally necessary. If we put the slips in, they would have grown. You can get a sweet potato from a friend and grow sweet potato slips by yourself. You can also go to the store and buy an organic sweet potato. Those will start growing and creating slips themselves, causing this to be nearly a free build. $20 for the soil, and that's about it. Now, stipulation 2, let's talk about ease of growing these. Basically, all we did was put the slip in and let it go. We haven't even really weeded in here at all. I'm gonna show you another one of our beds in just a moment to show you the difference between the 2 beds, but because these are wood chips and it's a lower nitrogen environment, not only is it easier to pull up the weeds, if they start growing, because the roots don't grab into the wood chips very easily, but also not a lot of things want to grow inside of it because it's a lower nitrogen environment. Here's the walking path next to the sweet potatoes, and let's see the sweet potatoes themselves. We basically have no weeds in here. There's some crabgrass that's growing through, but this is very manageable with very, very little maintenance. This honestly, I don't even know how to tell you how easy this is. It's very easy. Right, here's a little overgrowth, but it's really that the sweet potatoes are growing down into one of the paths and not so much in the wood chip bed. Over here, for example, in a bed that we brought soil into, you could see none of this is what I planted. This is all weeds. We just recently had a baby this year, which led us to not give a lot of attention to each of these beds in detail. And it shows, but you can see the difference. This is without wood chips, okay? And what I showed you before is growing in just wood chips. At this point, we have stipulation 1 and 2 met, but what about number 3? Did this method provide a substantial yield enough for us to call this a successful experiment? Here's how we will measure if this gave us a proper yield. At 50 feet long and 4 feet wide, this gives us about 200 square feet to deal with. We planted 100 slips in this entire area. That leaves 2 square feet per slip. Sweet potato yield can vary a lot based off of soil type and length inside of the ground. The standard sweet potato length is about 115 days. We are just a little bit over that at 120. A low to poor yield in a standard environment in the ground in normal conditions should give you about 1 to 200 pounds for this case. A reasonable yield will be 200 to 500 pounds, and an excellent yield will be 500 to 800 pounds. I've seen that we've gotten some decent sweet potatoes out of here, but I have no clue on what our yield is going to be. So I'm very excited to get in, digging into this and see what we're going to get. Our first year growing sweet potatoes was an exciting year. We did everything inside of one of these raised beds as proper as we possibly could, inside of actual soil and perfect conditions. We gave up one of our beds instead of an entire row. We were excited to feed ourselves for even just one dinner because we knew that this wasn't going to be so substantial it would feed us for the year. And when it came down to harvest day, our excitement couldn't have been more. We got together as a family and we dug up these sweet potatoes for one of our first, not just sweet potato harvest, but harvests in our first garden ever. And that was not as successful as we were hoping. And in fact, just watch this. I stole it from our Instagram just to show you how bad it really was. Turns out there was copyrighted music, but this is how much we got our first time trying to grow. At this point, we're just about halfway. Quickly lock in your numbers down in the comments to guess how many pounds we're gonna get at the very end. I will reveal it, but I want you to guess and what you think we're going to pull out from here. And we're finished. I'm gonna go and double check the row, but first I'm gonna walk through this and show you how many we've got. We're not gonna count them or weigh them yet. I'm gonna do that. This is your last chance to lock down in the comments how many you think. And then we're gonna go into weighing them and see just how much that yield actually is. One last good look at everything all the way through. We had some good patches, and then we had some bad patches, and then we had some monsters, and we had some babies. All of this all the way through. I am very satisfied. Now let's get to weighing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There's one little tiny one more. So we've got our first bag filled. I thought, whoa, that's heavy. I thought we were gonna be able to fill everything up in one bag. Not gonna happen. This is one small portion. I'm gonna weigh this one, and then I'm gonna weigh them as we go down, but I'm not gonna tell you yet. Let's just show you what I'm doing to weigh them. Hooking this thing up, turning it on. Oh, and then weighing. Bag number 2. Now the third and final bag. Now here we are with our final yield, and remember, we have 3 criteria. First is simplicity, which it passed. Second is cost, which passed Third, did we pass with our yield? Now remember, we need to at least, I'm hoping, meet the second tier, the average tier. Now when it comes to our yield, what would be a success for me, honestly, is even the low tier, because remember, this is just wood chips. If we get anything, which clearly we got something, that is a win. My initial assumption when we were first starting is I would get lower than 100 pounds. So for me, a win is above 100 pounds. But for the method, only wood chips, $20. What would be a win? I think mid-tier would be a winner. And our final number is, drum roll please, 207 pounds. With that, I think it is a total win. So I think we pass on all three criteria. One of the biggest wins with 207 pounds of sweet potatoes. Where I would go to buy my sweet potatoes right now is a place called Azure Standard. How much would this be if I ordered through Azure Standard right now? 400, how much? $450. So that is a total savings of $430. So is this successful? I think so. And can you grow in just wood chips? I think you can, and I think it's a valuable method. Sure, there might be a better way to do it, but this is a very cheap, very easy way to do it. And if you are curious about our really rocky garden space and what we've been doing to solve these issues, check out some of my other videos in this series. I got a whole playlist based off of that. Don't forget to subscribe and like. It really helps me out, and it will help us grow this channel and this community. See you guys next time, and can't wait to see you again. See you later.